Subscribe to this YouTube channel and never miss another episode of the Mindset Playground. And follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. Can't wait to see you there. Hey everyone, welcome to the Mindset Playground, where you're going to get your daily dose of positivity. And I'm your host, LouAnne Hunt. And if you've ever felt invisible or underestimated or stuck delivering a presentation that doesn't reflect the power of your story, today's conversation with my friend Mike will completely change how you see yourself as a speaker and a leader. So welcome to the Mindset Playground, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, LouAnne. I'm so excited you want to talk about stories. That means we get to tell stories. What drives me nuts about speakers, let me tell you what a great storyteller I am. And then they don't tell any stories. So we're going there.
Oh, good. Well, I've had conversations with you not so long ago, and I cannot believe how much I have learned just from our short conversations. So I'm really excited to get the show on the road, as they say, for today. So can you tell me or tell us a little bit about your background?
Okay. I want to tell, it's only best I tell a story, right? I can give you my resume. It's out on LinkedIn, but let me tell you a story, and this should tell you plenty about me. A number of years ago, about 25 years ago, there was a professional football league in the United States called the XFL. Is a spring league. American football, it's February now as we're recording this. The Super Bowl is coming up. It's the end of the season. And an entrepreneur decided to create a spring league called the XFL. The premiere was huge. I went to there's a movie theater that had these tables where they had table service. And that's where they hosted it. They said, before we start the game, we're going to have a burrito eating contest. Who wants to be in the burrito eating contest? And they picked me out of the crowd. I came up to the stage and I'm taunting the crowd. Come on, come on, come on. I've always been a big fan of the Coney Island hot dog contest coming from New York. So this is my chance to compete as a competitive eater. In fact, this is my second time I've ever competed in an eating contest. The first was a pie eating contest when I was a teenager, and I won it. So I was proud to win. I was a little bit embarrassed as a 13-year-old competing against kids that were 8 and 9, but I won, and that was that. I took my spot at the burrito. There's two other people, and it's on your mark. Get your burrito. Go! You know what I did? I just sat there and I took one bite of the burrito, put it down, wiped the corners of my mouth, and I slowly and gently enjoyed and savored my burrito while these other two hogs went face down into the burrito to win some lousy t-shirt. Now, what does that story tell you about me? First
That you
off,
like burritos.
I like burritos and I like football, so you know that. You know
Yep.
where I'm from. I'm from Long Island, and I have great reverence for Coney Island, not only the roller coaster, but also for the hot dogs. It tells you I'm competitive, but I don't take myself too seriously. I stand out in a crowd, and I know how to beat the system. All that from telling a story about a burrito eating contest. Anybody can tell a life or death story. Anybody can tell a story about their complete rock bottom. Now that's storytelling.
That's
How's my
definitely
connection?
storytelling.
I got a little unstable message,
Yep.
stable connection message come up. We good?
Yep. Well, we're okay. You're a little frozen right now. Hopefully, we're going to get through this. Now, I just want to let the audience know that you're coming in from
Okay,
Peru.
we're back.
Are we back? Okay. You're coming in from Peru. So we'll hopefully get through this. So, Mike, I know that you're on a mission to dismantle what you call false hierarchy in the speaking world. What damage do you see that hierarchy doing to everyday leaders? And how does it keep powerful voices quiet?
The hierarchy comes from academia. As a teacher, academia is the enemy. So I fight it within. I'm the disruptor. Some fields have a pedigree, have an academic pedigree. Okay, whatever terrible illnesses exist in the body, there's going to be an Ivy League researcher in a lab finding that out. There are some things in the hard sciences, some things that are an academic pedigree. Other fields are not, and public speaking does not have an academic pedigree to it. So the most prestigious, well, I'll have you know that I was the coach of the Yale debate team or something. Well, good for you, but that doesn't establish you as superior as a public speaker. And as universities are there to feed the corporate world to create their own hierarchy. As the higher up you go, the better communicator you are. But the fact is, that's the skill that's so pardonable to be a bad speaker that there's almost a premium on being a bad speaker. If you're in the corporate ranks, which you were for so long, you're not allowed to call out the emperor's new clothes. You're not allowed to call out the CEO doesn't know how to communicate. And that becomes a virtue. And all of a sudden the ums and the uhs and let me tell you about me and look at all these boring slides, that becomes a premium. If you want to make your way up in the corporate world, you can't upstage your corporate masters. You can't upstage your higher ups. So we start to put a premium on bad presentations. And how do we measure quality? By the quality of the slides. And is that whose voice is going to come through on a slide? And there's a time and place for them. If you're giving a safety briefing or a sales report, you need numbers, you need things that are visual. But you want to motivate people. This right here is a face-to-face conversation. I'm not putting up bullet point slides and telling you how many bites I took of that burrito before the contest was over. It's a real conversation. It's a raw conversation. It's based in stories. And that hierarchy that says, well, I have this many TED Talks, or I've given this many sales reports, or I've done this. There's no hierarchy. There's no better or worse. It's what inspires you and what doesn't. And what works at a corporate sales meeting or a product launch might not be the same that you'd give for a woman's shelter or a prison or other places that people speak. So it's not about good, better, best. And it's not about prestige. I'm not interested in prestige. I have this circle behind me, one because a feng shui person told me to have a golden circle on the wall. I said, perfect, I got one of those. But also so people know what I do. Not to say, well, I'll have you know that I am a certified world-class speaking coach. Very proud of it, but it's not there to impose dominance over anybody. It's for identification purposes and also for feng shui.
That's great. And it's good that you have that there because it's very colorful and it kind of blends in with your background. So
Works nicely. Yeah, I'm not a great home decor person. And there's always a neurolinguist to say, aha, did you hear what you just said to me? Listen, home decor is not my thing, but somebody said get a golden circle. I said, I've got one of those, made the banner, and
there you go.
here
Just
we
like
are.
having a big sunshine right behind you.
That's right. Always over my shoulder. I love it.
Yeah. So this is actually a great question for me coming up because as you know, I came from the academic world and my whole academic teaching world was about, slideshows and presentations. And I never even thought about this, but here goes the question. So you say that slide decks are digital monuments. What is the biggest mindset shift someone must make to move from presenting information to actually moving people to action?
All right. The saying is digital monuments to mediocrity. And this comes from General Patton, who said that talking about fixed fortifications are monuments to the stupidity of mankind, or how a battlefield has to be fluid all the time. And I equate that to your PowerPoint, which is static. If you come from academia, the progress in the classroom, see, it's worse than ever now with the digital stuff. And kids these days are in front of their screens all day. You think the classroom will be a respite from that. Instead, we double down, we make it worse, and then we complain when kids are on their phones all day. It's like, well, you're putting up boring bullet points on the screen. They'd rather watch cat videos on their own personal screen. But the progress in academia is not the technology. And that is one of the biggest myths going in education, is that technology is making a difference in how we teach. Technology makes the class less cumbersome. We've got Wikipedia instead of a row of encyclopedias. We've got YouTube instead of that TV cart with the VCR on it. So technology makes the classroom less cumbersome, and it can enhance the experience, but the methodology moves forward not with technology. The methodology moves forward when the class is student-centered instead of teacher-centered. You tap into the students, what their interests are, what their understanding of the material is, engage them first, and then present the material. I always say, by the time you open the book, it's too late. You have to engage them, so when they open the book, what they see in front of them is something they're familiar with, they've already been talking about. That is progress in academia. Now, when you begin and end with a slide without prepping them first and getting them interested in it first, what happens is you go backwards. It is now teacher-centered again. It's now material-centered instead of being student-centered. So no matter what the technology is, the focus has to be on them. One of my favorite sayings is, you're not the sage on the stage, you're the guide on the side. You're not Socrates. You're not there to just expound on your wisdom in life. You're there to empower your learners to create, to do something. That's what education is. You could accomplish that saying, okay, read bullet point number 3. Okay, Janie, read bullet point number 4. You accomplish it that way. Well, you won't. But if you can, by all means, they've got to do critical thinking. And once you put up that slide, you now destroy the connection you have with the students. And in presentations, you no longer have that contact with the audience. What we consider to be a standard presentation is, I'm going to turn my back on you, or I'm going to stand behind you and talk to the back of your head, and I'm going to read those bullet points to you as if you are illiterate. So you're not only insulting your audience, you're also destroying the connection that makes you unique as a presenter. And if you're in an environment, whether it's academic or whether it's corporate, where they want the presenters to be homogenized, it's a virtue for you not to stand out. It's a virtue for you to be like everybody else, to be a line cook instead of an executive chef. That technology takes away the connection you have with the audience. And there's no way that your most heartfelt stories are going to come through when you've got bullet points behind you.
So how would you address the whole situation of the visual learner?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. And let me find that, because I'll have you know, here it comes. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Now, this is not a trick question, LouAnne. What is this?
It's the letter A.
It's the letter A. You're correct. That is not a trick question.
Oh, I thought you were asking me, like, what is it written on? Sorry. Okay,
Okay,
the
well, it's
letter
written on
A.
the index card. Okay. Okay, this is the letter A. Notice you didn't say this is 2 converging diagonal lines held together with a horizontal cross bridge. That is visual. A is auditory. So even if
True.
you're physically looking at it, it represents something auditory. If you have a pictographic language like Mandarin or Korean, then you can make the case that this is something visual. Right? The symbol for China is that rectangle with a line down the middle. It means Middle Kingdom. It actually represents something. This is like the only Chinese that I know. Don't even know how to say it, but I know what it is. So if you ever see a Chinese restaurant, it looks like a hammer with a thing with a square. That just means China. But the point being, it's a pictographic language. You can get away with that. Our language is auditory. If you're putting language, if you're putting words and letters on that slide, you are not giving them anything visual. You're giving them something auditory. In
Interesting.
order to cater to visual learners, there are 2 things you can do. Number 1, you can use lots of props, and I have them all over the place, right? This is like a playhouse, like a fun house or something, in case that's your thing. The other thing you can do is tell stories that are very visual. Use a lot of descriptive words to cater to people. I told you the burrito story. I didn't get too visual on what the burrito looked like and what the venue looked like, but to cater to, I wanted to get through it quickly, but to cater to those visual learners, people's eyes. It's the most vivid and noticeable feature on somebody. That is how you tap into somebody's visual learning path.
Well, that's great. So let's talk about confidence without ego. Okay. So you're very clear that speaking isn't about validation, applause, or self promotion. And that's true with you. In your coaching, how do you help people build real confidence without turning the stage into an ego parade?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I have all my flashcards out here because I had a class last night. So I still have my flashcards here. Instead of this subject pronoun, often as you can get the word you into the presentation, there's no possible way for you to make it about yourself as long as you say you. And it's always in the singular. It's never some of you, how many of you. I'm sitting by myself, you're sitting by myself as you watch this podcast. Unless you're having a playground podcast watch party, you're probably watching this by yourself. So if I say how many of you, you're gonna say, what, me? What? Meaning that when I say you, I'm talking to one person. Always talking to one person. Even if there's 10,000 people in the arena, you're talking to one person. Always. And tell those stories in that. And when you tell stories, you can be, this is another thing to remember. You want to write this down as you watch this. You can be the main character of your story. The audience must be the main character of the speech.
Okay. Break that down for us. Unpack it.
The way you do that is I can tell a story about me eating a burrito. I can tell you a story about me running a marathon or me doing something. There have got to be check-ins with that audience to say, have you ever felt like this? What would you do in a situation like that? And then you pause long enough for them to think of an answer. And then you incorporate their answer into whatever you say next. What do you think their answer is going to be? I'll give you an example of one of my favorite stories I tell. Not going to put the whole thing out there because it's kind of personal with family stuff. But one question is, what got you started on your journey to get where you are in life? And a long pause. I'm thinking in my mind, well, there was this thing in high school when I was on the wrestling team. I'm thinking of my answer instead of counting to 5, right? I'm thinking of my answer. That means you're thinking of your answer. And then the next thing I say, if I start talking about me, well, then I just lost the audience because why am I asking you if I'm just going to talk about myself? So I'm telling a story about high school wrestling and said, all I knew back then that whatever I do in life, it's going to be competitive and physically intense. What about you? Think about where you are in life right now and what got you started on your journey to get where you are. I'm going to pause. Can you see it? Good. Remember your answer. We'll get to that later. Then I go on to talking, and then the whole point is, well, eventually I get back and I call back to that question and said, at the beginning, I asked you, what got you started on your journey? A better question is, who helped you get there? What I did is take that answer, your answer to that question, integrate that into the story, and ask that question, who helped you get there? Another pause. Now somebody's going to come vivid on their mind, and you could say, don't they deserve to know that? Okay. And now the purpose of the story is not me and all the cool stuff that I did, but the people I didn't realize were helping me and encouraging me. And I said, the whole point is that it's easy to look up to people who run through walls to get where they're going in life. What about people who build the foundation and the support so you can do that? Aren't they just as great? And that's the whole purpose of the story. The onus is now on them. The challenge is on them to pay homage to the people who supported them. not about all the cool stuff they did, or certainly not about all the cool stuff I did. No matter what accomplishments I have in my story, I can climb mountains or swim rivers with alligators, doesn't matter. What matters is the realization of paying homage to people who supported you, and now that's your lesson. And I'm
Wow, that's so
the
powerful. Yeah. So I know this kind of leads to what it is that you do because it's so amazing what you do. Like I said, I've been lucky enough to have conversations with you, and we've been together in different presentations where we tell each other our story.
yes,
And you have helped me so much recognize that my story wasn't really going anywhere. It was just that 10-minute infomercial or the elevator pitch. That's basically what it was.
yeah,
So can you talk a little bit about how you help your clients when they come to see you?
sure. The what they come looking for is what you say, that how do I pitch my stuff? How do I promote myself? How do I push my business in front of people? You break down communication in three phases. If you work backwards, the third phase is after they've hired you. Then you can blind them with science. Then you can open up the floodgates because they've hired you. Not only are they obligated to listen to you, but they put their trust in you. So they want to hear. If you work in the tech field, for example, once they hired you, you can talk about algorithms and you can talk about analytics because that's what they pay you for. That's the third phase, is once you've earned it, you get to fire hose everything you know. That feels good. You don't need my help doing that. Just go for it. The second phase of communication is that one-on-one sale. When they're in front of you, they're thinking about it. It's a lot of probing, it's questions and answers. It's 50-50 communication, where you ask the right questions, you gauge their interest, and then you make an overture and you sign an agreement and you go into business. That's the salesmanship. That's the second phase. The first phase of communication is what I do, which is public speaking. That is a message that's bigger than your business. You're going to teach people life lessons from what you do. And you're going to make reference to, by the way, I'm in the business of solving these problems. It's going to be problem heavy. So if I give a presentation, I give 3 pointers on how to tell a good story. Sequence it the right way, elevate the conflict, and put the focus on your audience. Those 3 things. You're going to walk away from that presentation, same way you're going to walk away from this podcast, with something of value. Something I can take this with me, and next time I speak, it's going to be better because of what I heard. And when you want more, you know where to find me. I never said, this is why you should hire me. This is why I'm better than the competition. This is how I'm different from the speaking academy of something. So I don't even acknowledge that. I'm not even trying to make a business overture. What I'm talking about is bigger than my business. If something strikes a chord with you, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, Mike, can we have a conversation? And LouAnne, you can verify that we have a conversation. It's a conversation. You want to do business, it's usually a second call. Because I don't like that switcheroo. You said, Mike, that helps so much. Great. Here are my rates. Let's get started.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, if this provides value to you, you say, I want that story. I want to tell that story where the lessons, the conflict in your story, the solution to the conflict in your story is the same solution that you offer in your business. That's a commercial for your business. Not after you, it's a commercial for your passion to solve people's problems. And if they want to follow up with you, this is how you do it. You follow up on LinkedIn, you can get on my mailing list, and then we'll get on a call and then we'll talk and see if there's anything I can do for you. And then we decide, should we do this now? We hop on another call after you check out your scheduling and your finances, or do we do business? Completely separate conversations. So when people come to me, they have to realize that the stories to inspire people come first. And you know you've got something golden when they say to me either, Mike, this is probably not important, but let me tell you a story. And that story belongs in the presentation. The other thing is a question. Yeah, but do people really want to hear this? And it's like, yes, they do. They probably, you're harboring a story that your audience needs to hear. where the solution you offer is the same solution that's in that story.
Right. And that is so true with you, is that we did have a great first conversation. And the other thing that I really like about your style is the way that you put me first in the conversation.
Yes. Well, thanks. As I
I didn't,
recall, if I can put
yes,
my glass just for a second, LouAnne, you've had this kind of, as I recall, you wanted to keep your childhood alive as long as possible. And
absolutely.
all these childhood dreams, and that's why it's the playground, right? Always wanted to keep the playground alive, always wanted to keep that childhood fantasy real, but then life intervenes, technology changes. So the TV with the rabbit ears became a high def plasma with shows I'm never going to watch. All these different things, these toys we had are not there anymore. It's all digital. But so a lot of things have changed, a lot of priorities have changed, a lot of technology has changed. The one thing that's never changed is you continue to ask the question, what do I want to be when I grow up? So now you've taken this thing of childhood dreams of someday I want to do this to this middle-aged reinvention. And you just have, it's like timing the moon landing. How many people are realizing that, you know what, most careers have a shelf life. We're going to change careers. We're going to have an existential life crisis. And what am I going to do next? And here comes LouAnne, for I'm not going to say how long, but for several decades, has been cultivating how to make that decision, how to have the same childhood ambitions, the same youthful energy and desire to start a new career in your 50s as you are as a child saying, someday I'm going to be an astronaut. And that's what you offer. And that's what you offer through your stories.
Absolutely. And thank you for remembering that. See, that's another point that I really like about you is you not only ask the questions, but you listen to the answers. And that's difficult for a lot of people because, they just tell their story and then the person says, okay, so do you want to work with me? And this is how
Um,
much.
that is, I'll tell you one thing. If you're involved in Toastmasters, and some people it's a godsend, some people it's a dirty word. I remember a Toastmaster giving the icebreaker, the first speech, and then she's evaluated. A week later, the same evaluater was running the meeting. She says, "Oh, where are you from again?" It's like, oh, you've got to at least remember where the person is from.
Yes.
Yeah, so
How true is
remembering
that?
their answers and like incorporating their answers into what you say next, it matters so much.
Well, and it matters as well for myself because now I'm not only interviewing a great guest, but I'm interviewing somebody and I know what their background is and how they can help the audience, what people are going to want to hear about Mike and what sets him apart from everybody else on the Mindset Playground.
All right, cool.
Yes. So let's finish this off with one more question because this is important for you because you say this all the time. You teach speakers that you should never give the same speech twice, but always deliver the same core message, like mine, right? Never
Yes.
give up the dream.
Mhm.
So, how does that approach help leaders stay authentic, adoptable, and memorable in different rooms?
The idea is, and this came from a conversation I had with somebody I really wanted to work with. She has this amazing fitness technology, and we were talking, and I know that I can help her because she's so hung up on how the technology works rather than the implementation of it. But she said something to me I didn't have an answer for it at the time. And it was, it's tough because you talk to different audiences who have different priorities and how to change. And now it's so obvious. But back then, I think, well, sucks to be you. But you know what? You're going to have different. Let's just say, typically, you're going to be talking to potential collaborators, potential clients, and professional colleagues. Just as a kind of a broad stroke. Your message is going to be slightly different. I'll use another analogy. Think of a commencement address. If you're speaking to a college graduate, university graduation, and you're going to have three distinct audiences in one auditorium. You've got the graduates, the faculty, and the families. You've got a unique message for each segment of that audience. it's relevant. What I say to the graduates is relevant to the faculty and to the families and all the way around, but the message is going to be distinct. What I say to those graduates, reach for the stars and fight for a better tomorrow and do your best and all that. I mean, I'm a little more cynical than that, but yeah, it's going to be tailored to them. My opening line is, are you ready to live happily ever after? And then say, well, now that you're graduating, you come to the reality that when you finish college, you leave here with more questions than answers. But the good news is you're college educated, you're smart enough to figure it out. That is the message the graduates. Meanwhile, the families are saying, "Oh yeah, I didn't think he was learning anything," but okay, they're the others are eavesdropping. You're going to have different segments of your audience who have different priorities and different stories that resonate. If you've got the full out keynote, then you give them everything you've got. But if you've got to tailor that, you put together a presentation in modules. That's probably the most valuable thing I do with a client tangibly, besides building up your confidence and your genuine messaging, is put a presentation in modules that you can remove and mix and match depending on how much time you have, what the venue is, what their priorities are, and what the next step is for them to take. So if you're in a business setting and people come in to see you, like into your physical workspace, the next step call to action is going to be a lot more direct and say, here's how you sign up. Where other places, it's going to be more just kind of conceptual. It's going to be a little bit different every time, but the core message is whatever it is. In your case, is stay on the playground.
Yeah, that's so true. Wow. So I know that you talked about the modules, getting your speech ready in the modules. I'm
Mhm.
sure one of your suggestions is to practice. How about knowing your audience? Should everybody do their research?
Do the best you can. I've made the mistake of assuming certain things. I can tell you're the type of people who love this, and you do have to hammer away. So you want to know as much as you can. If you have some kind of commonality, some kind of callback. I'll give you an example. When I was in high school, we had this thing, and it was an event. It's called Human Awareness Day, and all these different topics. And then I closed out with a comedian, and the comedian wasn't that good. He's trying to tap in. It wasn't working too well. But somewhere in there, he threw in the name of our vice principal, and everybody popped because we didn't know that he knew, and is now to say Ciro Prudente, which is just a name you're going to remember, real character. And when he threw that name in, everybody popped because he threw in the name of our vice principal. You want to know some kind of commonality, some kind of little inside secret or something that's going to pop that audience. So in that regard, you want to have that commonality and do as much research as possible. If you can throw in a background thing, if you're speaking one-on-one with somebody and we researched each other because we've met, if you're able to pull something up about that person that they didn't expect that you knew about, you own them. I'll throw in a quick story. If you know the name Harvey McKay, I mean, he had an envelope.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, an envelope company. Now, maybe the fact that I just have envelopes laying around could be attributed to Harvey McKay, but really, that's I got into Toastmasters because of him. There's a long, long, long backstory about that. But he told this story about being on Larry King Live, and say, how am I going to have Larry remember me? And what he did is he read Larry's book, Fit for a King. And somewhere in there, he said, well, Harvey, what do you think about this? He said, well, as I read in your book, Fit for a King, this, and Larry kept him on for the whole hour. He bumped his other guest. So anytime you can work something that somebody said into your conversation, into your presentation, that they find that they have familiar, they recognize, and they didn't expect, you own that audience. So in that regard, yes. What you don't want to do is throw out a bunch of statistics about the company. As you can see, your company's experienced 28% growth. I know that because I did my research. That's not going to get you anywhere. If you can strike a chord, something personal, something familiar they didn't know that you knew, yes, do that.
Right. And as a teacher, just as a little sidebar, when students would come up to me, say on the first day, and they would ask me a question. For example, I had a student who was going to be missing a class because she was going to see Taylor Swift. And that was a big deal, the Taylor Swift concert that was coming to Toronto in Canada. And the first day that she came up to me, because she was so concerned that there was going to be a test on that day, and she wanted to know if there would be because she was going to the Taylor Swift concert. Well, it's so true what you're just saying, because that day in class, right away, as soon as I could, I made a reference to Taylor Swift. And everybody was kind of laughing because they knew that she was a huge Taylor Swift fan and that
Yeah.
she was going to the concert. Everybody knew. So you're right. And it was kind of like that icebreaker because I related something personal back to the classroom. And I think that that's really important, just to let people know that you are listening to them.
Money in the Bank, throw in a song. You say, I knew you were in trouble, that kind of thing. Oh, I love that song. There you go. Let's say through. Good for you. Good to see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So what you're teaching is very true, very relevant, and I love it. So unfortunately, we have to end this conversation. But before I always let my guests go, I ask them for three golden nuggets to leave the audience with. So, what would your three golden nuggets be?
Well, LouAnne, before we started, I told you I was going to shuffle my positive affirmation flashcards here. And so I pulled this one up perfectly. And this one is for you. And if you can read it, it says, my youthful energy gets me respect. When you want to preserve that youth, as I said before, some people equate formal with professional. And some people think you're compromising your professionalism by being so youthful and like that. And that's why I write this, to know that whatever, just high spirit, high energy is kept between the rails is still something to be respected. You affirm that in your own mind, and then it radiates outward. That I don't gain professional respect by having no personality. That doesn't get you anywhere. So when I remind myself, so instead of there being a trade-off between humor and professionalism, a trade-off between energy and professionalism, just know that being youthful and energetic is not the same as being a clown spraying a bottle of seltzer down your pants and telling bathroom jokes. There's a difference between youthful and immature, and you can still maintain that dignity and respect. And that is something to know, that you can still be youthful and still be respected professionally. Can go ahead and keep going. What else?
Yeah, you're good.
All righty, let's something else of a piece of wisdom here. Your stories, back on the subject of stories, if you're telling a story where your life is in danger, I'm sorry to say I am not kept in suspense, because you're telling the story. I'm not surprised that you made it, because you're on stage telling the story. No matter what the issue is, due respect to whatever ordeal you want to talk about, that is not your initial conflict. That's going to be your elevated conflict. Your conflict comes in three stages: initial conflict, elevated conflict, and then internal conflict. I call it conflict, more conflict, your conflict. So every story you tell, make sure you elevate that conflict. It's the personal introspection, and your personal internal conflict is the real struggle. Because maybe, I use the movie Titanic all the time, maybe you've been on a transatlantic ocean liner that hit an iceberg and sank in the ocean. Maybe you haven't, but you can understand the love story between Jack and Rose. You can understand the sacrifice. You can understand the fact there was room for Jack on the raft, but I don't know. Whatever it is, the plot you might not be able to wrap your head around, but the emotional internal struggle is universal. And that's where your story needs to be.
I like that. So true.
Okay, and there's two. I got one more. Oh
Yep.
yeah. Okay, here's one. Get your emotions in check before you make an important decision.
All right. Well, that's a great one. That's so true. Never
You're,
make a decision out of an emotion.
yeah, I almost did that last week. I come here with all this great. Oh, I'm so wonderful. I do so great. I did a little thing last week and I got really angry at somebody. And well, anyway, the point being, I almost made a rash decision, but cooler heads prevailed and everything was wonderful. I still stand by my position of what I said. It's just how I said it. And I'll leave it at that. Nobody's perfect, but at least we had a nice little moratorium. We talked about it on Monday and it was, Mike, everything's going to be fine. I said, good. And we're back to where we were. I'm not going to give any more details than that, but we're good.
And you don't have to.
Cool.
I have totally enjoyed our conversation, Mike. Once again, I got some great golden nuggets from you that I am going to practice and use the next time I'm making my presentations in front of you.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Thanks for the practice. Thanks for the info. And I look forward to seeing you again on the Mindset Playground.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you.
This has been the Mindset Playground with host LouAnne Hunt. Tune in each week for another daily dose of positivity right here on the Mindset Playground.